This discussion with Dr. William Mpofu. He's a political analyst and researcher at WITS Center for Diversity Studies. Dr. Mpofu, thanks for your time, and I hope you were listening to that interview. The ANC NEC member there, in conversation with our reporter, Andile Lungisa, he says liberation movements haven't messed up. That's not the cause of their decline on the continent. It's because of external forces destabilizing them. What do you say to that?
This is what song the liberation movements in Africa have been singing. That imperialist forces, external forces, are the cause of continuing lack of delivery of the goods and services of liberation. So it scares me when a young person like my colleague that you were just talking to continues singing the song that Mugabe was singing, the song that Obiang Nguema in Equatorial Guinea is singing, the song that the comrades in Mpla are singing, in SWAPO are singing, in ZANU-PF are singing. The truth is, these movements are meeting at a time when they have lost relevance, when they have lost popularity, and some of them are losing power. And the question is, were they ever liberation movements in the very first place? I would prefer to call them independence movement, because they did deliver political independence. New beautiful flags, new melodious national anthems, nothing about economic freedom, nothing about social justice, but some of them went on to commit genocides. The prime ministers and presidents declared themselves leaders for life. The political parties did one-party state rule. And here we are with Southern Africa and Africa in tatters, to the extent that Africans are now looking towards coups, towards soldiers, towards the Traores as the solution for African problems, not political parties, not liberation movement. As I speak, we're living through the Trump and Traore moment. Trump being the face of empire at a global scale, Traore being the face of liberation at the global south direction. Nobody, the youths and other people, are not looking at these movements as going to provide any strong answers to the strong questions that confront the African continent and the global south at large. So these movements are meeting here in misery, in shame. They have nothing in their hands except the blood of innocent people and the pain and the poverty of the populations of Africa.
So I will say then, these so-called liberation movements, the MPLA, SWAPO, Frelimo, ZANU-PF, the ANC is hosting them in an effort to address the regional crisis, as they call it. But you know, are we just sort of, who is the impartial party here? Or is it just a discussion about how great we all believe we actually are?
Yeah, it's actually Julius Nyerere, the late Tanzanian leader, who described, he was talking at the time about OAU, that this is a club of tyrants that meet to plot how to protect themselves from the anger of their people in their specific countries. This gathering might be that gathering, a gathering of desperate losers that have not delivered what they promised to their populations, what they promised to their people. African countries are damaged because these movements, most of them that have become political parties anyway, are themselves damaged. They've got internal divisions. They are guilty of corruption. They have personalized national resources and all that. And this happens at a time when the geopolitical conditions of the world demand that Africa be united, so that Africa will not once again be converted into a sphere of influence by global powers from the east, the west, the south, and elsewhere. But here we are, Africa is more divided than it ever was. Here we are, Africa is more poor than it ever was. Here we are, Africans are more unhappier than they ever was. Yet, Africans walk on the bounty of the world's mineral and natural resources and human resources. These liberation movements should look each other in the eye and say, let's commit political suicide and end ourselves and lead to another era where coalitions, government of national unities, and all that can be the future. Because nothing in their hands for the past decades. Nothing in their hands for the past decades. And we can even begin to think about the Moses effect. Maybe these people that went into the war to fight for liberation should not have been the people who then try to govern. Because liberators cannot be governors. We know it from Moses in that folktale, that biblical narrative, that sometimes the people who liberate are not the best people to govern. We can say that from Africa.
Yeah, I mean, even the statement, the press statement, insofar as this so-called Liberation Movement Summit is concerned, it says it will be a moment of reflection as the liberation movements have come under fire for failing to deliver on some promises. I mean, even just that statement from the presser that was released, it doesn't say, you know, what it should, which is perhaps coming together to reflect on our failures.
Yeah, but, you know, what disturbed me and nearly stopped my heart is that this is not said by elder leaders within these liberation movements, but to hear a much, much, much younger person reiterating that song, repeating that mantra, it scares me because it means these liberation movements that are actually independence movements are unable to introspect, look at their failures in the eye. They want to blame imperialists, they want to blame opposition political parties, they want to blame factions, they want to blame security personnel that are coming up to defend the constitutions. Because lately in Africa, it's securocrats, it's soldiers and police officers. That's a development in Africa. I can project as a political philosopher and a political scientist.
Dr. William Mpofu, let me thank you for your time, just as we were losing our connection to you there, but I think your point has been well made. He's a political analyst and researcher at Wits Center for Diversity Studies.